Word Laos.
Welcome to Travel Talk, filmed at the Peachtree Rose Marketing Studios and hosted by the hotel guide publisher, Edward Laos.
Good afternoon, everybody. Edward Laos here, publisher of the Hotel Guide and your host of Travel Talk. I'm really excited about today's guest. I met Scott a couple of weeks ago at a travel show here in San Antonio, Texas. And then we connected, and man, his story is amazing. And I thought, you know what better way than to just keep this story to me, but to kind of share it with our guests and our readers and listeners. And so, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. After hearing your story and kind of how you got to where you are now, I was really intrigued by it. And I thought it'd be fascinating for a lot of our listeners to kind of know a little bit about yourself, and if they haven't already crossed paths with you, because you are a travel influencer. And I think it's important for people to know what's going on. So as I do with all my guests, let's start with the beginning. Tell us a little bit how you got to where you are now, and then we'll dive into, big goals and what's coming up for the company.
Yeah, so I used to be in investment banking. I did that for 10 years. And, really weird story. The guy who sat next to me, his best friend was an expat who was working in Bangkok. And every time he used to come visit, we used to hang out, drinks and dinner, and we became really good friends. And he always used to tell me to come visit. He's like, come to Thailand. It'll change your life. You don't have no idea. And I was like, I work 90 hours a week. I can't take a 24-hour flight. So they came out of the office one day, January of 99. I'll never forget this day. It was a Friday, and said, if you show up on Monday, you're going to have a new owner. We just sold the firm, and half the firm resigned, including myself. Wow. And I got in touch with the guy the next day, and he's like, come on out. You have no job. And I bought a 2-week ticket the next day. On Sunday, I left. And after 4 days, I call my mother. I'm like, you got to send all my things. I'm never coming home. I love this place. And I ended up living in Bangkok for 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was completely, off the rails. But in my opinion, it's still the greatest place on earth. I really loved the culture, and just the people are like the kindest people you ever met in your life. And it completely changed my life. And after a few years of bouncing around Asia, social media came out. Mm-hmm. And on a whim, this was not planned at all, I started the first digital agency in Asia, and we were the biggest for 5 years. So all my clients were hotels. So my on-the-job training was in the hotel industry. So, we did just Southeast Asia's explosion into tourism. And after 5 years, I realized I didn't want to have an office with 37 full-time employees anymore. So I sold the agency and built up my personal brand and started bouncing around. I ended up living in 6 different countries in Europe and Asia for 17 years and came back to the States in 2015.
That's amazing. Go back to, I know when you told me the story before, it's even better hearing it the second time here, but go back to that moment when you said, you know what, I'm going to take a risk and I am going to go to Bangkok. I'm going to take my buddy up on that and just go. Talk about a little bit about that shift in mindset, going from, man, I'm just leaving my old job, moving on to this. Walk me through that so our guests understand that a little bit too.
So in order for you to understand why I made that drastic shift, you have to even go back further than the investment banking firm. I grew up being a police officer's son. My dad's side of the family, they're all cops. And the way I was brought up is, when I was going to finish high school, I was going to join the police department, become a cop, get married, have the 2.5 kids, retire, and die. Like, my life was completely mapped out. And that's the way I wanted it. I loved it. I loved everything about being a cop. I was raised that way. My mentality still to this day is a cop. I took my driver's license in a police car. Like, I spent every waking hour in the police department growing up.
Wow.
I had a date for the police academy 6 months after I graduated high school. And 3 weeks before I graduated, my father was killed in the line of duty in a plane crash. And it turned my whole life upside down. And fast forward then to the finance industry, I just decided that planning things and like setting things in stone leads to disaster. So now I just go with my gut and just go with the flow, everything that I go. So I'm either all in or all out.
Yep. And I rebel with that about you when we were having that discussion. I didn't even know about the police story side of you. So I appreciate you sharing that and giving us a little bit more clarity to making that decision. Because a lot of times life change things happen for people. And it's like, I'm just going to go do. And when you understand why and how it happened, the reasons become even better. Not that we've got to justify to people why we're doing what we're doing. But I love what you were saying earlier when we were chatting previously about, man, I just go. And I live in hotels and I travel the world and I do what I do. So tell me a little bit about your company now, your brand, and maybe some of the big things that you think might be on tap for 2025 for you.
Yeah, so now basically I operate as a digital agency, and the front door is my social media. People either get a hold of me through email or DM, and we essentially our tagline is we turn storytelling into ROI for the hospitality industry.
Yep.
Okay, so we teach the hospitality industry, primarily hotels and cruise lines, how to do social media better, how to take a conversation and turn it into ROI. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that people normally hire me for is, content creation, an influencer type thing. But I always have a photographer with me, and we combine that with doing a photo shoot for the actual property or destination or cruise ship. And, it works out pretty good. You're actually delivering hard assets. You're not just saying, oh, hey, come to the hotel. Okay, I'm out. Bye. You're actually working with the hotel for a little bit longer of a stay. And it seems to be worthwhile as far as hitting that ROI a lot harder than it would whether you're just there for 2 days in and out sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Talk a little bit about how the advent of social media and also, as you know, experiential travel being like the next big thing for travel. If actually it already is, but I think post-COVID experiential travel has just gone to the top of the list because people, they want to experience where they're going. How important is it to mesh storytelling, experiential travel, and the social channels to make that work for a travel hospitality agency?
Well, it's very important, and it's funny. It's not just good enough to be a good photographer anymore. You also have to be good at marketing your photography, or your risk is you'll have the world's best kept secret. Mm-hmm. So you can't just say, okay, let me tell a story. How are you telling a story, and what do you want to derive from the story? You got to work backwards. You gotta say, this is the end result that I want. So how do I tell the story that hits on the key parts where I can get the ROI from it in return? You know what I mean? And you have to pay attention to the trends on what's going on. Mm-hmm. And you have to always be testing, tests all the time. That's the biggest problem with the hospitality industry, primarily hotels, is they don't have a full-time social media person. And if they do, they have one and they have 15 other job responsibilities on top of this that are much more important to this. And when you get a chance, post on Instagram.
Correct.
But, you don't understand that it's the most important pipeline of communication that we have.
Yep.
So the importance, therefore, should be put as that. It's just, it needs to be more important, and it needs to have precedence.
No, I agree. And I think with your agency and with what we're doing with the Hotel Guide, being a digital travel network too, I think it's important that all of our hospitality clients understand the importance of social and what it means. It's one of those things that it's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And I think that's where people fall. And, it's like going to the gym. It's easy to do, but you need to do it, but doesn't mean you always do it. And so from a social side of things, I think it's important to mesh that with the marketing side. So let's shift a little bit from the business side and let's talk a little bit about your personal side, because I know you have traveled the world. We were chatting before about that too, but what were some of your favorite travel destinations that you've been to?
I mean, Thailand's still my favorite. It completely changed my life. And I just think that there's no place in the world that has kinder people. I mean, it just completely blew my mind. I haven't been to every country. I have several friends that have, but for me, Thailand's still number one at the top of the list.
Thailand's the number one. Okay, so you haven't been to every country yet. So what bucket list travel places or things that you want to do you still have on your bucket list?
I find Africa being so interesting. I've done Morocco a bunch, I've done Kenya a bunch, and I've done South Africa a few times. But other than that, I haven't done any other country. I really want to spend like 6 months and bounce around there and really like just dive into the culture and really dive in and just stay there and just learn a lot and make a lot of friends. And I just think it's so interesting.
No, and again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier with the importance of experiential travel and what it means. I think, you and I become the walking billboards and brand ambassadors for the places we go. And I think when people in the hospitality industry understand that we're not just ROI, we're not just heads in beds kind of thing where, man, I have a great experience at not only a hotel, but at the concert I was at or whatever. Now I'm telling everybody about it, and it becomes a whole different ballgame. So it's one of those things, sales and marketing, taking care of the people who are already investing in your property, investing in you. Now all of a sudden you're maximizing that return. So we got a few minutes left here, but any other thoughts on your brand, what you have coming up for the next year, or what you see in the industry, maybe some greatest challenges or things that we could overcome from a social or digital side?
Digital side, I still don't think hotels are moving fast enough as far as social media marketing. I really don't. There's a lot that are doing it right. There's a lot more that are still doing it wrong, and they still think it's 2010. They're living in the past, and they don't understand that they're flushing hard-earned dollars down the toilet with that magazine ad that a friend owns just because he's buddies with the hotel owner. And I see it every single day.
You know what? It's funny you mention that because I think it's important when you're talking about marketing and advertising. And I think that's one of the reasons we evolved from a print version to where we are and being completely digital. It gives the ability for you to touch various points, but if you do it right. And I think that's one of the biggest things is times have really changed. And it's people like you, people like me who are going out there trying to be a little bit of, I don't want to use the word trailblazing, but just getting it out there and letting people understand the importance of the social side, the digital side, and really what it could mean to your brand and the success or potential failure of it.
Yeah, I mean, just going through the motions, it doesn't work anymore. Saying social media marketing is just making posts is like saying cooking is just mixing ingredients.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work that way. I work with so many brands that leave ROI on the table, and it makes my head explode.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm going to use that from now on about making food and the difference between food and the chef. That's gold right there, Scott. I mean, come on. I'm going to pull that one. I want to use that in everything I have because you're right. Everybody be a great chef then, and we're not. And so we could all have the same ingredients, but doesn't mean we're going to cook it the same way as as a Gordon Ramsay or something like that. So that's amazing. So, all right. So as we're wrapping up here, what's the best, easiest way for people to find you or learn more about you and your services?
I'm Mr. Scott Eddy on any social media platform, and it's also my domain, mrscotteddy.com.
Man, that's very simple.
Easy, baby.
I love it. It's like, thehotelguide.com. And then I've got my coaching side too, which is edwardleos.com. So, you and I are about keeping things simple. It's brand vigilant, which I love. Very easy to find. Anyone on the social side of things, you got to follow Scott, influencer on the travel side. Scott, man, 15 minutes goes by real fast.
Yeah, this was quick.
But it was fun. No, this won't be the last time we're going to be on the show. I think you got a wealth of knowledge. We could talk marketing, digital side. We can even talk destinations. I'd love to hear more about your Bangkok stories and stuff like that, and the experiences there too. So thank you for being a guest on today's podcast. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Perfect. For all of our guest readers and listeners out there, continue to follow us at thehotelguide.com. We're actually going to have Scott's information in the bylines and all that when we put this out too. But to everybody out there, we want to say travel, make memories, and until next time, take care. Talk soon.